Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. Can't believe what I've just done, I'll tell you in a minute, but welcome to the show. I'm Mark Goldbridge. We're very close to a here we go from Fabrizio Romano. He's come out tonight in relation to Xerxes and said, basically, next steps, here we go, and it's going to happen very soon. In fact, we are basically heading towards a dream summer transfer window for Erik ten Hag. The Hotometer's up to date. Give it a like. We'll go through that and we'll look at what a dream summer transfer window looks like for Erik ten Hag. Because from where I'm sitting and from what I'm hearing, this is going to be the summer where a manager actually gets unconditional support for the first time since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And you could argue Sir Alex Ferguson didn't get unconditional support. So maybe this is the first big summer transfer window in decades. It's absolutely huge. What will it look like? We're also going to look at the homegrown rule. Some people are saying we've got to be really careful about the homegrown rule. We haven't. I'll go through the rules. I'll go through where we are. And effectively, we could buy 4 or 5 foreign players and be absolutely fine. In fact, if we're really clever, there's some really good business we can do, especially around a couple of players who are people think are foreign, but actually would come in as homegrown. Frimpong for one. Also, want to get into your questions. Of course, you know, it's the Sunday night show. All those years ago, we started off on a Sunday night show with the mighty United Stand. And when I say mighty, I'm talking about you fantastic people, the community. Because when I mention the word mighty, we used to do one show a week on a Sunday at 8 o'clock. Me, Kev, Martin, Rich, Alex, once a week. We'd have about 50 people watching for the first 6 months. Look at how many people watch it now because of you. And because of you, we're interactive. So get your questions in. Amazing what we've built. 10 years this Christmas. Keep your eye out for stuff that's going to go on there. Anyway, one of your questions just before we went live, just to be a little bit topical, somebody somewhere has said that Marcus Rashford's been offered a move to Saudi Arabia and rejected it. Don't know where it's come from. Don't really think it matters. Don't know whether it's guesswork or real. Bottom line is, Saudi Arabia speak to people like Saka, Mbappe. They speak to all the big players because they're basically just try. They'll go, we'll give you £1 million a week, tax-free. Most of these players won't do it. Every now and again, some will. You know, Demirel's playing in Saudi Arabia. I think he's 26. Ruben Neves is in his mid-20s. He's in Saudi Arabia. So some will. Marcus Rashford's not going to go to Saudi Arabia, and I don't blame him. You know, he's 26 years of age. He's still, you know, going to Saudi Arabia is great for your bank balance, but you are taking yourself away from credibility at the moment. That's something Saudi Arabia hasn't got. So Marcus Rashford's not going to go to Saudi Arabia, and he shouldn't go to Saudi Arabia. So, you know, that's my thought on that. Welcome to the Members Club, Kyle. Welcome to the Members Club, Big Booty Latino Hunter. That was a big name. There we go. So get your questions in. Want to get your thoughts on that. We're going to go through the Hotometer. We're going to look at what this dream transfer window actually looks like for Erik ten Hag. Not just a potential starting 11, but also positions, backup, etc., the squad. But before we do that, Fabrizio Romano following up from Ornstein. And can I just say, these Wallies who get in the chat saying Ornstein cooks Romano again, I mean, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I do this for a living, I suppose, technically. And, you know, I know David Ornstein and I know Fabrizio Romano, and they are both brilliant at what they do. I said this a few weeks ago. In a transfer sense, they're the only 2 people this summer who are getting stuff. No one else can get anything. And it's a bit like having Ronaldo and Messi of the transfer window. Like, we've got 2 people with really good sources providing us information. And some people want to play one against the other. And it amazes me. We should just appreciate both, because when it comes to Manchester United, one gets one thing and then the other gets the next bit. And it's working really, really well for us. And as I said, we reacted to David Ornstein's news at lunchtime. Fabrizio in the last few hours has said that, you know, pretty much here we go is going to be happening, and it's going to happen very, very soon with Xerxes. We expect that with De Ligt as well. I hope we can get those both done this week, and I think we're waiting, you know, we're on tenterhooks for that to go, aren't we? We're ready for that to go. Where it goes from there is going to get very, very interesting. Just on Xerxes, if you're feeling a little bit nervous, by the way, Italian reports are saying that Milan have already moved on. They're looking at Morata. So there's nobody else. Just take a chill with Xerxes. It really is about when and not if anymore. So get ready for the here we go on that. I mean, hopefully tonight, tomorrow, it was great to get it before Wednesday and really kick on. But yeah, really, really excited about that. And also, as you know, as we were talking about at lunchtime, I mean, I want to talk about the centre-back situation for a moment. In fact, let's look at the Hotometer, because I suppose that's as good a place to start as any. I want to get into the homegrown stuff as well. Niki says that Xerxes gives me Fellaini vibes yesterday because of his hair. That's fine. There's no similarity in play style. Absolutely none. So this is how the Hotometer's looking at the moment. Smash a like on the video for the Hotometer. This is yours. We created it for you. It's unique, it's brilliant, and we love it. How it works is, and we have a colder meter as well. I just don't have it to hand at the moment, but in fact, I think I do. There's the colder meter. That's who's going out the door. We rank them out of 10. So 9 out of 10 is hot. Almost hotter than the sun. And this is our latest Hotometer. So as you can see, Xerxes and Delit are hot, hot, hot. 9 out of 10, 90% chance they're going to happen. And that's why they're the hottest at the moment. They're the hottest too. And we've just said why. In third place at the moment, we've got Agate. I think that's just based upon Man United have been in talks with PSG. It's ongoing. And I think that deal is close, but could drop. You know, we saw with Todibo, he went up to an 8. He's dropped completely out of there now. So Agate's still there, and he's certainly one to watch. Branthwaite, we shouldn't dismiss. We really shouldn't. But we've now got Yoro in at a 7 out of 10 with Branthwaite. Now, I agree. I agree with interesting vids and Taco that Yoro's going to go to Real Madrid. You don't beat Real Madrid to these types of players, whether it's Chermini, whether it's Camavinga, whether it's Vinicius Jr. But you just don't beat them to Bellingham. You don't beat them to these types of players, do you? It just doesn't happen. But I think that the fact that we're pursuing it and we're, you know, some might say we're wasting time, but you've got to be in a lottery. You've got to buy a lottery ticket to win the lottery. And if we could get Yoro in, then our 4 centre-backs next season would effectively be Martinez, Yoro, Delit. They would be our first 3 centre-backs. And then you'd probably have Cambuala and Evans, I think. And you'd sell Maguire and Lindelof. I think that would be the logical thing to do. It would be quite a nice balance because Yoro's so young. But I still wouldn't rule Branthwaite out. I think Branthwaite for Manchester United... I mean, Delit's basically done. So you're talking about who your second centre-back's going to be. And whilst we're going for Yoro, and whilst Branthwaite's still a possibility, we're not getting Yoro, Branthwaite and Delit. So that's the way I look at it. I think I look at it like that. Delit is going to happen, so who will the second centre-back be? And I think at the moment, with Todibo out of the race, and apparently Juventus are moving close to getting Todibo now. So, you know, that's going to be over very, very quickly by the looks of it. Branthwaite or Yoro would be the two that we have as 7 out of 10 at the moment. And then you've got Frimpong and Neves. And I think that, look, I've said this many times before. When you look at the homegrown rule for Manchester United at the moment, the way the homegrown, and this is important because it's important for the transfer window. Manchester United need to buy a right back if Aaron Wan-Bissaka goes. And I think there's very high chance that will happen. Manchester United have got to be careful about the homegrown rule. So the homegrown rule is you can only have 17 foreign players in your Premier League squad. You can have as many homegrown players as you want. I mean, you can have a squad of 25, but, you know, it doesn't really matter. But you can only have 17 foreign players in your squad. So Xerxes would be foreign, Delit would be foreign, Agate would be foreign, Branthwaite wouldn't, Yoro wouldn't, Yoro would. Although Yoro, by the time... No, Yoro wouldn't, because he'd be under 21. It would be like Rasmus last year, and he'd probably get 3 full seasons in maybe before, but it wouldn't matter. Frimpong, although he's Dutch, is a homegrown player because he was at Man City for 3 years before he was at 21. So Frimpong's not homegrown. João Neves obviously would be homegrown. But we don't need to worry about the homegrown rule because I was looking at it today. You've got Anana, Delo, Malacia, let's say Delit, Martinez, Casemiro, who might not be here, Agate, Ericsson, Bruno, Anthony, Xerxes if we get him, Ahmad and Palestri, I'm not even sure if they're classed as homegrown because I think they've done 3 years before they were 21. Before they're 21, I think. But that takes us up to 13. Rasmus would now be classed as one as well. 14. Binder 15. We'll probably get rid of Lindelof and maybe Casemiro. So even with Delit, Agate and Xerxes, we've still got 2 spots left. And I'm not convinced that Palistri and Ahmad will both stay or are homegrown anyway. And we'll probably sell Lindelof and Casemiro. So we've got plenty of room in our squad for foreign players. Even if we get Xerxes, De Ligt and Agate, I think we can bring another 3 in if we want to. So we're easily under. We're easily under. There's not a problem with that at all. And with regards to homegrown, I mean, look, Marcus Rashford. I mean, who's our homegrown players? Tom Heaton, Luke Shaw, Mason Mount, Kobe Mainu, but he's under 21. Garnacho's still under 21. I mean, I'd sell a lot of them. I wouldn't keep players at Man United just because they're homegrown, by the way. Whether it's Scott McTominay, Harry Maguire, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I wouldn't, even Marcus Rashford, I wouldn't keep them at the club because they're homegrown. There's plenty of players that are going to come through for Manchester United. So I think we're in a very, very good position. And as I said, if you bought Frimpong, he's homegrown. He would go on the other side of the coin. He would go into the homegrown section. So I think there's a few people talk about homegrown. All I'd say is, unless we go and buy 8 foreign players, which we won't, we've got nothing to worry about at all this summer transfer window. We'll be absolutely fine. So how do you think Erik ten Hag's dream summer transfer window looks at the moment? Well, I think when you look at it, there might be something that happens with Binder as well. I don't think Binder's actually happy at Man United, so he might go. We might bring another goalkeeper in. We've been linked with that Suzuki again. Right back, I think it's going to be Dalot and a new right back. Centre-backs we've already spoken about. The 4 or 5 will be Martinez, De Ligt, another new signing, and then you've got Kambwala and Johnny Evans, and you probably sell Lindelof and Maguire. Left back, we've got Luke Shaw, and we need to buy another one. In the midfield, I would say at the moment, we've got a midfield 3, which will definitely be Mount, Bruno, Mainu. A new signing, 4. Collier will come through, 5. You probably, I think, need another new signing. But I think we'll probably keep McTominay, and Eriksen will go with Donny and Amrabat. So in the midfield, we probably buy 1. And Casemiro will go as well, I think. But we probably buy 1 and keep McTominay. I'd buy 2 and sell McTominay, personally. On the wing, you've got Rashford and Garnacho. And on the right, you've got Ahmad and Anthony. And then up front, you've got Xerxes and you've got Højlund. So the dream summer transfer window at the moment will be 2 centre-backs, a left-back, a right-back, a midfielder, and a striker. And that will be what? Have I done that right? 2 centre-backs, a midfielder, a right-back, a left-back, and a striker. 6 players. And I think Erik ten Hag would be very happy with that, coupled with a lot of players going out. Personally, I'd like us to bring another winger in. I'd like us to bring another midfielder in as well. Probably not going to happen. But Erik ten Hag at the moment, when you go through that, I think that there's not a lot more Ineos can do if they deliver 6 or 7 players in and they remove a lot of the deadwood as well. It gives us a proper platform to hit next season. And I don't think Erik ten Hag can have any complaints. And the feedback that we're sort of getting is that Erik ten Hag is very, very happy with what's going on with Manchester United at the moment, because Xerxes is the player he really wants. De Ligt is another player that he really wants. And that's a brilliant start. Now, if you add into that, he really would like Frimpong, if we're being honest. And if you can get him João Neves or Agate, because we were linked to Agate last summer, it's another player he likes. I think you're delivering players that a manager actually wants. I mean, I personally still wouldn't rule out Rabiot. Weekend Bus says, what about Pellistri? What about him? I did mention him. I'm not convinced that Pellistri and Ahmad are classed as homegrown. I think I've got a feeling that Pellistri and Ahmad are both classed as homegrown because we bought them in 2020 and you've got to do 3 full seasons at your club. You can be on loan somewhere else, but you're still a Man United player. And I have a feeling that Pellistri and Ahmad may both well be classed as homegrown. If they're not, they're very, very close. But obviously someone like Rasmus wouldn't be classed as homegrown because we bought him at 20 and he's not done 3 years before 21. So now he moves into being a foreign player. What do you think about the CDM situation? Do you think we should go for 2, says Nick? Oh, 100%, mate. Eduardo says, any talks for a winger? Rashi and Anthony ain't it, says Eduardo. Right wing, sorry, says Liam. He also says, I think De Ligt can be a great signing next to Martinez, and I'm sure any CDM we will get will do well, but we haven't had a solid right winger in ages, says Liam. Xerxes, we've done as well. Get your comments in. I'm loving this tonight. It's just a very laid back sort of get involved, have your conversation sort of thing. I thought it was a really interesting just on the world of transfers as well. I think it was a really interesting debate. Sometimes I just tweet and I leave it, especially on a Sunday because it's Toxic Sunday. And I put a tweet out today. I can't remember what I said exactly. Some of you might have seen it. And I basically said, Saka is such an inspiration. Jadon Sancho was saying pretty much the same thing. And I said, Saka is such an inspiration. And he is the definition of what it's not easy. It's not easy to, turn up to work year in, year out as a young player and deliver. And I said, what an inspiration he is, especially when you compare him to Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho, who, when they all missed that penalty for England at Wembley in 2021, if you look at the way their careers have gone, all three of them, Saka has just been incredible. And I had a lot of people replying to me saying about all sorts of stuff, turning it into something, I was talking about football, nothing else. But somebody said, his hatred of Rashford is so obvious. Rashford went on and had a great season after that one. I was like, you're missing my point. All I'm interested in is Manchester United being good. And when I look at these transfers and I look at next season, the best way to be good is to put a structure in place that recruits well and gives the manager what they want so that they can be truly judged. And if they get the sack and fail, they can't say I didn't get what I want. What I was talking about Saka is that even though he plays for Arsenal, and that bothers me, of course, ever since he missed that penalty in that final at Wembley, he's basically took Arsenal to 2 title races and never lost his England place. He's been brilliant. Marcus Rashford had a brilliant season, the season before last, but it was sandwiched in between 2 bad ones. So Saka's been brilliant ever since, day in, day out, and Marcus Rashford 50% of the time hasn't. And Jadon Sancho probably 80% of the time hasn't. The whole point of the tweet, and this is where, Player FC can do one for me, is that there's no reason why Marcus Rashford can't go and have 3 years like Saka from now. Some people like you won't believe it, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did. It's hard though, and that's my point. What Saka's done is incredible because he's shown it ain't easy. You take your foot off the pedal, you don't fancy it, you get the hump about not being picked, you can't. It stands out like a sore thumb at this level. And this is what Manchester United need to bring in. It ain't easy at the top. I've seen it. I've seen David Beckham. I've seen Roy Keane. I've seen Wayne Rooney. I've seen Eric Cantona. I've seen Cristiano Ronaldo. And they're all better than Saka. But the one thing they have in common with Saka is every day they put that shirt on, it's deliverance time. And that was my point of my tweet. It's like, I know Rashford had a good season, and I know he could have a good season this year, but can he do what you've got to do, which is you can't have a bad month, let alone a bad season. And that's my point. And that's why when I look at the recruitment now, it's all right getting excited about De Ligt and Xerxes and whoever else comes in. And that is very exciting. But it's what these players do in year 1, 2, 3, 4 that defines whether you're good enough. And over the last 10 years, you won't even get past hand 1 of players that can do that week in, week out, year in, year out. And we've spent billions, well, not billions, but over $1 billion. Bruno Fernandes is probably the only one. The consistency is the big thing. But it is possible. It is possible, and it's about the right players. I don't know much about Saka, honestly. I'm not an Arsenal fan. I don't know what he does off the pitch. I don't know how he behaves. I don't know. But what I do know is every time I watch him, I'm impressed. And we need to look at that. Of course we do. Of course we do. But there was Tom Murphy, welcome to Members Club. Fun fact, Eric Dyer is not considered as homegrown suspend. Well, we're definitely not buying him then. Jose says cash flow issues too. Cash flow outflow timing for Xerxes has no impact as the same expense will be amortised manually. Don't overpay the release clause, says Jose. We still have Palestri, Mark. What about him? We've spoken about that. It's interesting. Look, get your comments in tonight. There's lots to get into. We're talking about this summer transfer window, and I suppose the overarching thing I would say, and I would throw it to you, we like to rank this transfer window when it hits the end of the window, give it a mark out of 10. Obviously, that's a personal thing, but what I'm looking at the moment, and obviously things can go bad, but I'm looking at the moment, and for the first time, I'm looking at this, and look, I know Jose Mourinho never got the summer he wanted. Maybe the first one, he got Zlatan and Pogba and Mkhitaryan and Bay, but he never really got what he wanted. Van Gaal never got what he really wanted, and Ten Hag's never had what he really wanted. But I look at this summer and I go, well, Sesko didn't want to leave. So whether he wanted Sesko over Xerxes, Sesko didn't want to leave. So Sesko stays at Leipzig. We pivot to Xerxes. I would take on board that we were probably trying to get Sesko as our number one because we hijacked the Milan deal for Xerxes. But that is a player that Ten Hag wants, and Sesko's not left. So you could argue that that's option A. De Ligt, I think, is obviously going to be a very high priority for Ten Hag. Whether it was his number one priority, he's still going to be over the moon about that. Now, if you follow that up with, Frimpong at right back, if Wan-Bissaka goes, you follow that up with Agate or Neves in the midfield, if Casemiro goes. You bring in a second centre-back that's Yoro or Branthwaite, and then a left-back. And I look at it and I go, well, from Ten Hag's point of view, he's probably got everything he wants. It might not be everything we want, but he's probably getting everything he wants. And you're then looking at it and going, well, look, hopefully we start the season well, but across the course of the season, if we can avoid injury, then surely we're going to start to see what this is all about in year 3. And that's massively, massively exciting. There was an interesting point here. I'll come back to it in a moment because Lee says, are we actually going to be playing wingers next year? Not linked to any new wingers, and we aren't playing wingers at the end of the year, says Lee. Well, Garnacho's a winger. He will be starting for Manchester United. Marcus Rashford's a winger now. He will probably be starting for Manchester United. I mean, I've seen a lot of people. I mean, if you're not watching live, do get in the comments after the video. I mean, you can put it in the live chat if you want, but it will disappear, won't it? But if you're not watching live, get in the comments on this question. Based on who we've been linked to, what's your dream team next for Manchester United based on reality of what we're linked to? Because I'll go through a team for you. And I've seen this team a lot on social media. I've seen it a lot. And a lot of people are talking about Onana in goal, Dalot at right back, De Ligt and Martinez, and then Luke Shaw as a back five. And I like that. If Luke Shaw's fit, very good left back. Martinez and De Ligt are obviously going to be our first choice centre backs. Onana behind them, that Ajax connection. Hopefully we can play a higher line and sweeper keep. And Dalot at right back. I'd be very happy with that back five. I think it might be fantasy because I'm not convinced that Luke Shaw is going to stay fit. But, as a dream back five, that's pretty good. And it's probably a reality, so I would agree with that. I've then seen a midfield three of Agate, Mainu and Bruno. And again, I can live with that. I think that if we bring in Agate, he will ideally, if he adapts, bring a lot of tenacity, and he's not bad on the ball either. We know Mainu is just going to get better and better. I mean, I think Mainu's an 8, but he's only 19. In 2 years, he might be a lot bigger and a lot wider, and he could be, he could be one of these modern dynamic sixes. So, yeah, Mainu, Agate, Bruno looks very, very good. I'd agree with that. And then everyone's got Rashford on the left wing, Garnacho on the right wing, and Xerxes up front. And I disagree with that. That's where I would go, well, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that because I do agree with the back five. I do agree with the midfield. And there might be a few changes. We might not sign Agate. We might sign another midfielder. Casemiro might stay. But I think the back five will probably be right. And obviously Mainu and Bruno will be in the team, and it's whoever's next to them. But the front three, I don't necessarily agree that that's the dream. I really don't. I think that Rasmus will start because I think that he offers something different to Xerxes, and I think Rasmus will stay as the number one at the start of the season. I think that Garnacho is better off the left, and although it worked in the FA Cup final, I'm still not convinced that Garnacho goes on the right and Rashford goes on the left. So, and I'm not convinced that that necessarily is what Ten Hag wants to do. I think if it works, Rashford on the left and Garnacho on the right could be really, really good. But I think we probably still are looking for a winger, and I wouldn't be surprised if we went for one, because it's interesting, actually. I'll explain this with the help of Gary Neville. Gary, come on. Stop eating your yogurt and get on. Oh, he's shy. You won't come on. Of course, he's not bloody coming on. He ain't shy. He's scared. But the point I'm trying to make is, Gary Neville said today, talking about Manchester United's transfer window, he was talking about Dan Ashworth, and he said, I expect it to be measured from Manchester United. And if they can't get what they want, they won't buy anyone. And that's what he said. So he said, Man United will be measured under Dan Ashworth. And I think if they can't get what they want, they won't get anyone. And I completely disagree with that. I think it's rubbish, to be honest with you, because we didn't get Branthwaite and we're moving on to other targets. But I suppose the proof will be in the pudding. And Gary Neville's comment works really well with what we're talking about here. We really wanted Elise. You know, I'm not going to get Sir Jim Radcliffe saying, Mark, we really did want him. You know, at the end of the day, we didn't get him. You know, we really wanted to get him, but we didn't. We're not going to get that. But everybody I've spoken to, credible or not, will admit that Elise was a major target for Manchester United. Now, he is a right-footed right winger with creativity, and we didn't get him. So are we going to go, we really wanted a player like that, we didn't get him, so we won't bother getting anyone, even though we haven't got anyone like that? And I just don't think Gary's right on that, because Elise would be the example. You know, if you can't get what you want, you don't get anyone. And I don't know what he did at Valencia, I don't know what he does at Salford, but at Manchester United, you snooze, you lose. If you want a right winger who is creative and you don't get the one you want, if you don't go and get somebody else, you're never getting Elise because he's gone to Bayern Munich. So you've got to pivot to something else because you've highlighted a problem that is in the team. So I still expect Manchester United to bring somebody in this summer who is creative from the right-hand side, because they desperately wanted to bring Elise in and they lost. You know, Bayern Munich, had the money, paid good wages, and they got him. But I don't agree with Neville. I don't agree that if they don't get what they want, they'll just won't bother. Because, well, you're never going to catch up with Arsenal and Man City, are you? Like, the reason we're not near Man City and Arsenal is because they've got 5 or 6 things we don't have. 5 or 6 problems. Could be 7 or 8 players, but 5 or 6 problems. And one of the problems is creativity. We don't have it from the flank. And we're not going to get it from Elise. So we have to have an alternative. And I don't think... I actually think, you know, what Gary says about being measured, and if we don't get what we want, we won't bother. I think that's a glazer. We're used to that. We've been used to that for 20 years. Oh, if we can't get what you want, we just won't bother. I think that we will get something, because I think that Ineos will know that's a problem. And whether it's Xerxes or Rasmus up front, you already look at that team and go, where's the creativity coming from? Unless Garnacho really matures over the summer and becomes a creative monster, he's not creative yet. Anthony's not creative. And Rashford's not creative. So I still really do think that we will be looking at something. Now, what that something would be, look, Neto would be very, very welcome, but there are injury concerns and they've just sold a player for 40 million. So I don't know whether you could do that deal with Wolves. Do they desperately need to do a deal like that now? They might fancy themselves to go with what they've got under Gary O'Neill. So where else we go, I don't know. A lot of people saying Chiesa could be the answer. I think some creativity off the wing is definitely required at Manchester United. How do Real Madrid get around FFP, says Alan. I genuinely can't answer that question. I don't know. Could Ahmad be the answer? Could Pelistri be the answer? Yeah, you know, Marvin AM says, Mark ignoring Ahmad's creativity. Mate, I don't manage Man United, Marvin. It's not me ignoring his creativity. It's Eric, to be fair. You know, how many games does Ahmad start for Manchester United? Did he start in the cup final? No. I mean, sometimes you've got to follow what's happening. I would have started Ahmad in the final. I would have started Rasmus in the final. He didn't start Ahmad in the final. So I'm not convinced that Ten Hag really is going to give Ahmad or Pelistri a chance. And both those players might hand transfer requests in this summer. But whether it's Ahmad, whether it's Pelistri, whether it's a new signing, we have to have some creativity from the wing. I think we're all in agreement over that. What do you think of Frimpong as a right winger like Netherlands use him, says Slipsy? Well, see, you're ahead of the game, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. If you bring Frimpong in, you could play Dalot and Frimpong in the same team, because Dalot likes to invert and Frimpong's very good at putting crosses in. So, I mean, you could almost fuse them together and have them swapping roles. I mean, I don't think that's part of Ten Hag's plan at all. But, you know, you could do something like that. And he can play right wing, and he does, and he is very creative. So, you know, I wouldn't mind trying that. There are younger players that can come through as well that are creative. So there are other options. And I think the great thing about Manchester United is that, you know, Mainu came from nowhere, really, last season. And Garnacho's been given his chance. And you can't sit here in July and say that by Christmas there'll be another young player, whether it's Collier or Lacey or whoever, and say that they won't be part of the first team plans, because Eric Ten Hag's already shown that. You can probably sit there as an Arsenal fan or a Man City fan and say you're probably not going to have that happen. But I think at Man United it's a bit different, and maybe Liverpool as well, as they saw with Bradley at right back. Never Agate Mainu. Michael Slater says never Agate Mainu at Cam Sell Bruno. I don't know what that means. What do you think of Kubo from Sociedad? I mean, Liam, great option. Not heard anything about it. Certainly would like someone like that. He's just not been mentioned around Manchester United for a very long time. Any names for left back? I like Mendes from PSG. I mean, Darren, the left back thing. I mean, Kirkes gets mentioned by it. We've got Fabrizio on the show tomorrow afternoon, so I'll ask him about left backs. But it just seems like everyone knows we're going to buy a left back, and Kirkes gets mentioned, but I don't really think that's the one we're going to end up with. Greg Scott says, under Ineos, we negotiate with multiple players simultaneously and move faster. In contrast, the previous regime only engaged with one player at a time. Yeah, exactly. And look at the difference. And I think that's why we needed to see this, Greg's, and we are seeing this. There is absolutely no way under the previous regime I would sit here and think we could sell 10 players and bring in 5. It would be impossible to do that. It'd probably take them a decade to do that. But under this regime, there's a lot going on. And I think that's why we've brought Christopher Val in. Is that we've got multiple experts working on multiple deals. I mean, in all fairness, Dan Ashworth can't be working on De Ligt, Xerxes, Greenwood exit. It's impossible. You do need to allocate people to different tasks. Luke Miller says, hi Mark, I'm not sure if you've seen me around the chat. You're the GOAT, and I pre-ordered the book and I can't wait. Thank you very much, Luke. Appreciate that. Please do keep ordering the book, by the way. I'm going to whack it up on the screen for you. Really appreciate that. Love the support and appreciate it as always. Luke, thank you very much. Tom Murphy, welcome to the Members Club. Appreciate that as well. Anthony's going to fire up this season, says Sadov. You know, when it comes to Anthony, I just think keep expectation low. I think a lot of people have written him off, and you might be right. I wouldn't write him off just yet, but I think with Anthony, keep your expectations low, and you might just be surprised. You might just be surprised. Mainu last year, Lacey this year, says Weekend Bus. I don't know about Lacey this year. I'm hoping we'll get an idea in the pre-season as to what young players might be ready, but it might be a bit too soon for Lacey, if I'm being honest. I think he is still 17. I think it might be too soon for Amas as well. Yeah, he was only 17 in April, so I think it might be too soon for him. But there's some bloody good players, you know. What was the name of the lad who was in Dubai on holiday with his brothers, and the Rooneys were there as well? I can't remember his name. Oh, I mean, he looks like he's going to be really good as well. There's so many players. There's so many players at Man United. Look, Ethan Wheatley could break through this year and be an option. Forson's already gone, MA. I'd love either Davis or Kean best as left back, says Nick James. What about Nico Williams, Mark, says Rash. I mean, Nico Williams. I can't pronounce the name, that's why I never get it right. But Ibrahimov is the one I was talking about, yes. Amir, that's the one. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, look, Nico Williams, Yamal, we're not going to get, but they're exactly the type of wingers you want. What I love about Spain, and I'd love Man United just to have one. What I love about Spain is that on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, they're very different players with very different ceilings, but they do the same thing. They can score a goal, but their ability to create is amazing. And they sort of want to create more than score. And at United, our wingers want to score more than create. And it's that mentality that needs to change. I don't think you're ever going to change that mentality from Anthony, to be honest. He cuts inside and he wants... It's almost like a signature curler over the bar, isn't it? Marcus Rashford as well cuts inside and, you know, puts his foot through it. And sometimes there's a great goal there, of course, but it's in their DNA to cut inside and shoot. And it's nothing personal to Anthony, Rashford, and to a certain extent Garnacho. I mean, you know, I think Garnacho's a fantastic player, and I think he's so young that he can develop other areas to his game. But I don't think Anthony and Rashford are going to change what they are. And you can have one, but you can't have two. We just need a winger whose DNA is creativity. If they get a shot and they take it, great. And I think Yamal and Williams are good at that. If their chance is there, they'll take the shot. But their instinct is to create for Morata or whoever's on the bench, whoever's on the edge of the box, whether it be Rodri or Ruiz or whoever, or Dani Olmo. And I think that profile of winger we don't have. And we need that. We desperately need something like that. And also, talking about DNA, it's what Man United are. I mean, I don't know how old or young people are in the chat, but I guarantee most of you, if I said to you, what's Man United's DNA in relation to style of football, and most people would say wingers. Wingers, you know, in my lifetime, you know, I don't remember the likes of Steve Coppell, etc., but in my lifetime, Lee Sharp, Ryan Giggs, Kanchelskis, Ronaldo, Nani, you know, wingers who, yeah, they've got a goal in them, but they're creative, you know, width, getting across in the box. It's in our DNA. That's what it is. And at the moment, Manchester United should always have a winger who can put a cross into the box. David Beckham. Of course, I've just missed Beckham out. I mean, how have I done that? We've always had players who can put a cross into the box. It's actually our thing. And at the moment, we haven't got somebody who does that. And we need to have that. One, because we need it. But two, because we're Manchester United. We should always have a winger who can put a cross into the box. Whether somebody can reinvent themselves or not, I don't know. But it's an open goal if I'm a winger at Man United. If I'm the guy who's putting the crosses in the box, I'm going to be loved. I'm going to be absolutely loved. If you're a guy at Old Trafford whipping good crosses into the box, you're going to be loved. Because people are going to go, oh, it reminds me of Beckham. It reminds me of Kanchelskis. It reminds me of Giggs. You know, we love it. We love that. That's what we are. And we should have somebody doing that. And of course you need fullbacks to do it, you know. Whether it's a Dennis Irwin or an Evra or whatever, you need somebody to be doing that. Or a Gary Neville, you need somebody to do that. But we need that type of a player. And if Sir Jim Radcliffe is this lifelong Manchester United fan, one of the first things I would do if I was Sir Jim Radcliffe, like if I literally was Sir Jim Radcliffe with my mind, I'd be like, I don't care what we do. We can get the centre-backs, we can get the midfielder, we can get the striker. But for the love of God, get me a winger who can put a cross in the box. It's the only thing I ask. One, we need it. Two, it's how I want Man United to have. All my life we've had it. We haven't got it. Go and get it. It's the only personal thing I'll say. It will make the team better anyway, but get me a winger who can put a cross into the box, because that to me is what Man United is, and we need to be able to do that. What about Nico Williams, says Rash? Yeah, we spoke about that. I grew up with Becks, Giggs, Nani, Young, Park and Valencia, says Nick James. Bloody hell, what an upbringing. I know what you mean though. And yeah, look, I mean, yeah, we need those types of, we need that type of player. Where we go, now that we're not getting Elise, I don't know, but there are players out there. Maybe you go for somebody a bit younger. Maybe you go for somebody with potential, but I'm not. When I look at this dream team that people put out there, obviously a lot's got to go right for it to happen, but Onana, Dalot, De Ligt, Martinez, Shaw, Agate, Mainu, Bruno, Rashford, Xerxes and Garnacho, I don't think it's balanced in the front four again. I really don't think that's a balanced front four that's going to score a lot of goals, because I don't know how Rashford, Bruno, Xerxes and Garnacho work. They're all like a shot. They're all flair. Where's the structure to that front four? It's a bit like, you know, how do they work together? And I want to see a structure. I want to see a team And do you see a front four that's going to be really good at retaining possession? Because that's got to happen. That's got to happen as well. So, yeah, I'm not convinced that that's going to be his front four. I mean, we've got to see what Xerxes all about, but I'm not convinced that'll be his dream front four. I still think that he will want to use Rasmus, but I think he will also want to bring in a winger with a bit more creativity. 100%, 100%. Coming back to the comment, oh, guys, I'm hot tonight. Oh, by the way, please click the subscribe button, bottom right-hand corner. Before I went live, we're only 15 away from 886,000, so please do subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Royale says that Palestri's got a higher potential than Anthony. Marvin says Højlund can't retain possession. I don't know what that means, Marvin, because how many times do we knock a good ball into Rasmus? How many times do we even provide any service to Rasmus? We probably watch football in a very different way, Marvin, but I don't see Man United playing a style of football where we're knocking the ball into the forward to hold the ball up for other people. I don't see that. I didn't see that at all last season. I saw an attack that was ridiculously imbalanced, that didn't press collectively, that didn't pass well. What about Denzel Dumfries at right back, says Khalid. Look, he's a good player, and he is a player that Ten Hag's looked at, and he's more defensive than Frimpong. If we go for a right back, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know what the situation is with Dumfries at the moment. I don't know whether he's up for grabs. I don't know what his contract like. Well, sod it, let's do it. It's a Sunday night show. I mean, look, again, the only people who know what's going on at the moment are Ten Hag and Ineos, and until you get a drop from Ornstein or Romano, nobody knows. No one knew about Agate. So he's 28. Dumfries is 28, and his contract at Inter is up in a year. So, you might have just dropped a real sort of clever idea in there. Because he's only got 1 year left on his contract. He is a player that Ten Hag really likes. He's an absolute beast at right back. He's 28 might be a little bit beyond what Man United want, but for those people who are worried about defensive play, he can do both. I think he'd want Frimpong over Dumfries, if I'm being honest, though. But you go for what you can get, don't you? We've got to bring a right back in if Wan-Bissaka goes. Like, there's nothing in the youth that's going to step in there. And all right, you might play Camboila at right back or whatever, but you need specialists. Like, what about Xerxes as a 10 and Bruno on the right? Says Al. Well, I think there is flexibility. I mean, where's Mason Mount going to fit into this? I mean, tonight's not going to be a show about Mason Mount, but it's funny, we're doing United's best 11 again, and we're arguing about whether Rashford will be on the left or Garnacho, or whether Xerxes will start or Rasmus. And these are great arguments because there's options. I don't care if it's Rashford, Xerxes and Garnacho if it works. But on the other hand, it might be Garnacho, Rasmus and Bruno on the right and Xerxes behind him. Like, as long as it works, don't care. And there's definitely competition for places. Ideally, I want to bring a creative winger in and put him on the right wing. But as long as, it works. But I still look at Mason Mount and I go, at some point, he's got to be in this team. Like, I said this last season. I like Mason Mount. I think he's a good player. But where's his pathway into this team? I've never understood where Mason Mount goes in this team. And he has to go in the team because he's on 250 grand a week. He's wearing the number 7 shirt and we paid £55 million for him. So he has to be in this team, but nobody ever puts Mason Mount in their dream team. They just go, what a great option he is from the bench. But that's not what we bought him for. Like, Mason Mount, at some point, and now's not the day or the night to do it, but at some point, near the start of the season, we've got to figure out what Mason Mount's going to be for Manchester United, because he cannot be a 250 grand a week, £55 million bench player with a number 7 on his back. And whether he should have got the number 7 or not is open for debate, but there has to be a conversation about why he's at Man United. Unless he wasn't bought by Ten Hag. But I'll tell you for free, We were flying to Oslo. Beth and Ryan on the United Stand were flying to Oslo last year. On the same 3 seats was Darren Fletcher. He wouldn't say much about what was going on. He was a nice guy. But what he did say is about Mason Mount is that Ten Hag's really happy with him. He's really liked the player for years. So the news has always been that Ten Hag wanted Mason Mount. And if that is true, then there has to be a pathway to the first team. And we are yet to see what that is yet, because he's obviously not been fit enough. We can't go another season without wingers creating chances and being selfish. One of Ten Hag's biggest tasks should be fixing that issue. I agree with that, Bremer. Absolutely do. Sorry, Mark, but Lindelof is better than Evans, says Magnus. Mate, I wouldn't disagree. I think Harry Maguire's better than Evans, but Johnny Evans, like Tom Heaton, is happy to stay at Man United and probably not play. Johnny Evans is probably going to be 4th or 5th choice centre-back, and you need that. Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire, quite rightly, are not going to be happy to be 4th or 5th choice centre-back when they want to play international football. We're going to have Martinez and De Ligt and one other centre-back, and they will be the first 3. You can't put Lindelof and Maguire as 4th or 5th choice. If they want to be, fine, but I can't see it in a million years. Mount's here to replace Bruno, says Graham. I hope he's not. I really hope he's not, Graham, because we had this conversation the other day. Somebody said, I'd sell Bruno to Saudi for 100 million and use Mount. And I nearly cried. Spontaneously nearly cried. I was like, oh my God. You would sell the most important player in our team, the leader, the guy that everyone looks up to, for Mason Mount, who basically didn't play for a year and might not play next year. I mean, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So I wouldn't be replacing Bruno with Mount yet. Maybe in a year's time. Maybe that's the pathway, but we haven't got anything on that at the moment. Red Devil's Advocate says, any updates on Casemiro? Not at the moment. Not other than what I said yesterday afternoon, that there is a rumour that he might want to stay and fight for his place and prove everybody wrong. I mean, look, if Casemiro does that, as I said yesterday, absolutely fantastic. But I think it's a big risk. I think it's a really big risk. Because if it doesn't work out, there'll be a backlash. And it will be against Casemiro. And unfortunately, you know, that's the way football works, isn't it? You know, if you're a comedian and you've not been a comedian for 10 years and you do a comeback, people say you should have retired, and then you come back and you're rubbish. You know, he's got to, if he's going to stay, he's got to deliver. You know, and 6 out of 10s ain't good enough. What about Pavard for right back, says Darren? I mean, he is another player that Ten Hag likes, but again, I mean, how old's Pavard now? He seems like he's been around for bloody ages. Doesn't even get picked for France anymore. 28. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Dumfries and Pavard are players that Ten Hag has looked at in the past, but I think we're clearly looking at players under 25 for a reason. Hunger, ability to come in and be hungry and you know, fight. I think it's important. I think Mount will be selected ahead of Mainu on age, says Nick James. Nah. I genuinely do not think that, Nick. I think that I just don't think you can't leave Mason. You can't leave Kobe Mainu out of the England team at the moment. He's that good. He's only going to get better. You can't leave. It'd be like saying. It'd be like having a 25-year-old that's quite good and then dropping Wayne Rooney when he was 19 on age. You just can't. You can't do that. Like, Mainu's just too good. You can't do that. Could Mount play off the wing? It's not naturally his position, and I think it's hard to play on the wing. I mean, Beckham made it his own, but it's hard to play off the wing when you're not really naturally quick or, you know, good at taking players on. I think you can do a job there. I think Bruno and Mount can do a job there, but I don't think it can be their position. Oh, look, I'm genuinely intrigued to see how it's going to work out when it comes to somebody like Mason Mount, really. Would you try and play Mount on the right for creativity, says Harvey? I mean, you could try it. You could try it. Maybe that's a solution. But we desperately do need some creativity from there. There's no doubt about that. No signings yet, says Michael. Mate, I think you're in the minority. Michael in the minority. If you're worried about we've not made any signings yet, I can't help you, mate. I really can't, because I just think, you know, this is a different world. And we're literally that close to here we go with Xerxes and here we go with De Ligt. And that's 2 big signings in the first week of July. A centre-back and a striker. 2 key positions sorted. I'm very happy with what we're doing at the moment, because none of these players that we want to sign could be back. Look, if some of these players could, if there wasn't a Euros and De Ligt and Xerxes could be training at Carrington tomorrow, I'd be like, why haven't we got it done? But they're not going to be training at Carrington until August anyway, because they've got to have a holiday after the Euros. So in relation to here we go and all that lot, great if it happens this week. But we know that we're in a position where we basically know Xerxes and De Ligt are going to be Man United players. I know we've got to go through the process of holding up the shirt and everything, but they're basically going to be Man United players. We also know that we're bidding on a midfielder, so we know that's going to happen. We also know that we're looking at a second centre-back, so we know that that's going to happen. Look, left back, right winger, a second midfielder. Hopefully that's going to happen, but I guess we'll see. Did you see the Elise announcement, says Kate? Well, I saw that we were linked to him again last week, but it was never going to happen. Like, you know, we'd already had the Here We Go from Fabrizio, and I know he's in Germany to do his medical. Rooney was done at 29. Load management for Mainu, says Eduardo. I said it watching England yesterday. You know, selfishly, it's great to see Kobe playing for England, but, you know, there is an argument to say I wish he hadn't been called up and he'd had a summer off. You know, you don't want to burn these players out. And that's why having options in the midfield would be good, because it would be nice to be able to give Mainu games off next season at some point. Not at the start of the season. I think we've got to start the season well. But, you know, if we get a run of games in October where it's like on paper not that bad, and some Europa games, you maybe could give him a little bit of a rest. We certainly need to learn about last year. 2 player of the seasons in 4 years at Chelsea, says Centimetres, talking about Mason Mount. Well done. Must be really proud. Look, I like Mount. I just see him as a Chelsea player because I haven't seen him in a Man United shirt do anything yet. I've said it about Mount a few times. I just don't. Nobody ever puts him in their best 11. You know, no one ever puts him in their predicted 11. Nobody puts him in their dream 11, and I think that's a problem. Like, where is he going to fit in? And that's where I'm intrigued. Grimaldo, 28-year-old, been a beast for Leverkusen this season, says Raz. And hi, Mark. Why don't we go for Eze? I would argue he is just as good and has more potential than Elise. What are your thoughts? I think he's a lot older, Eze. I think Eze's like 26. 26, same age as Rashford. So probably cost a lot of money as well, because I think his contract has got quite a few years left on it. 2027. I know there is a club looking at Eze, but I can't remember who it was. Alex says Mount was a mistake. Well, I don't think he was a mistake. That's the point. I think he's a good signing. But actually, some people in the chat can't believe Eze's 26. I didn't realise until last season. No, I don't think Mount's a mistake. I just think he's a mystery. We don't know what he's going to be. Martin says Pellistri played well for Uruguay last night. Would you keep or sell? I like Pellistri, but I've always said to you, it's quite obvious that Ten Hag doesn't. Spurs and Eze, that's right, yeah. It's quite right. It's quite obvious to me that for whatever reason, and this happens, you know, Mourinho wouldn't pick Herrera and picked Fellaini, and I never understood it, and I liked Mourinho. Players have their own little angles on things. I don't understand why Pellistri doesn't get given a chance, because he's the most creative winger we've got, but Ten Hag's never gone for him. And I don't know whether it's because of his height or whatever, but Ten Hag has never liked Pellistri. What I've always said about Pellistri, though, is if he was at Man City, he'd probably get more game time, because that low centre of gravity, you know, I think he would be a good player for a team like Man City. Maybe not a starter, obviously, but I think he would be. He's suitable for that. And you have to acknowledge that he's playing against Brazil. He plays for Uruguay a lot. They're in the semi-final of the Copa America. Like he's playing with the likes of Nunez and Bentancur and Valverde and Agate. Like, he's in that team. He starts. So there is definitely an interesting player there. But for some reason, it doesn't seem to work at Man United. But look, if it could work, then we wouldn't need to buy somebody. But he's got to be whoever. There's no point keeping Pellistri if we're not going to play him. Is my point. There's no point keeping Ahmad if we're not going to play them. I'm tired of having people in the squad that just don't get picked. Like, if we're going to keep them, use them. I mean, somebody said to me yesterday, what if Jadon Sancho turns up at training tomorrow, hugging Erik ten Hag, smiling? And I said, well, you know, I think a pig might fly behind them. But if it did, then we're not buying a winger and Jadon Sancho's suddenly back involved at Man United. Whether that's right or wrong, it solves a problem. So, look, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think that will happen, but we have got an abundance of wingers. And you would argue that if Rashford's staying and Garnacho's staying and Anthony's staying, then out of Sancho, Pellistri and Ahmad, 2 of them need to go. Just so we can bring somebody else in. Absolutely fantastic. Don't agree with this. Sancho, apologise. He plays, says Nick. Don't agree with this. Sancho apologises. He plays. I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means, Nick. What a show it's been tonight. Really, really enjoyed it. Hope you have as well. Make sure you subscribe. We were very close to 886,000. I've got Fabrizio live on the show tomorrow afternoon at 2 o'clock with me. We've got the morning show at 10. We're going into another week. Obviously, it's the last week of the Euros and the Copa America. So I think it's safe to say that things are going to start moving because it's only 3 weeks, I think, now until Manchester United go on tour. In fact, it's probably less than that. It might be 2.5 weeks. So Patrick says, what about Greenwood? You would expect something to happen with that as well. Lots going on with Man United at the moment. Very exciting time. And thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. I will speak to you on the next one. Take care. Please order the book. It's coming out in 3 weeks itself. If you want to get a signed one, they're going fast. But please support it. I think you're going to really enjoy it. You can scan the QR code. And don't forget to enter the competition where you could be in the Goldbridge Arms, which is going to be a great night as well. Just click the Penguin link when you go through the QR code or the link in the description. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you in a bit.